In this video, we'll discuss everything and anything you want to know about carbohydrates and how they can affect your fat loss diet, so stay tuned. Welcome back, Ironside, to part 2 of the fat loss series. In part 1, we discussed the problems of obesity, how we get fat biologically, and how to ascertain your maintenance calories. Now let's take a deeper look at macronutrients and their role in losing fat. We're going to start with the most controversial of all the macros, carbohydrates. So, what are carbohydrates and what is their role in our lives? Carbohydrates, or carbs, contain sugars, starch, cellulose, or similar substances. Their role is to supply the body with energy. Carbs usually are grown from the ground and have approximately 4 calories per gram. Next question, how does the body convert carbs into energy? As carbohydrates are consumed, blood sugar levels increase, stimulating the pancreas to secrete insulin. Insulin works to help convert the sugar into glucose and then helps the body absorb the glucose for energy or storage. The presence of insulin within the body is to reduce the amount of sugar in the blood. Therefore, insulin will help reduce the amount of blood sugar present. This is why there's a noticeable change in blood sugar levels before, during, and after consuming carbs. Before eating, blood glucose levels should be between 80 to 130 milligrams per deciliter. While consuming carbs, blood sugar levels rise. Then approximately 2 hours after blood sugar is converted to glucose within the cell, blood sugar levels should drop and be no more than 180 milligrams per deciliter or less. So, as you eat carbs, the body converts it into glucose for energy, and what you don't burn will be stored in the liver and muscles as glycogen. Okay, so what the crap is glycogen? To keep this relevant, we will discuss glycogen stored in the muscles, better known as muscle glycogen. Muscle glycogen is often regarded as the preferred energy source of all of our muscles. You consume carbs before you go on a walk. The body converts those carbs into glucose to give you enough energy to complete the walk. Whatever glucose you do not burn off then converts to glycogen in the liver. Later, if you decide to weight train, your body will use the stored glycogen for energy. Lastly, the brain also uses carbohydrates to function correctly. Without supplying the brain with enough carbohydrates, the body will convert other macronutrients such as proteins into glucose in a process called gluconeogenesis. So even if you reluctantly refuse to eat carbs, the body will convert them for you to survive. Now that we understand carbs' roles and the importance of them, let's discuss the problems of carbohydrates and why they've been villainized the last few years. As discussed in part 1, the body's primary focus is survival. The body will ration energy to be stored or used depending on how active you are. Any number of calories not used or stored as glycogen is converted to fat for survival. Most people consume more calories than they'll ever use, thus creating a gain in fat. This is why the first law of thermodynamics is always quoted when referring to fat loss or gain. This law states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted from one form to another. Therefore, taking in energy as calories can only be converted into energy or stored in the future. Simply put, the amount of tissue gained depends on the amount of the conversion of that energy. If you eat more than you burn, you will create more tissue. If you burn more than you eat, you will lose tissue. Carbs have a terrible reputation because if you consume too many calories from carbohydrates, which is easy to do with today's food access, you will gain fat. If you're constantly eating carbs and your blood glucose levels are constantly high, your pancreas has difficulty converting sugar into glucose, thus causing the person to become insulin resistant and eventually type 2 diabetic. In my experience, I've had several clients with type 2 diabetes, and the vast majority of them have since changed their diet and lifestyle and now have normal blood sugar levels and are not considered diabetic. I want to stay in my lane here and remind you that I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, and you should consult with your physician concerning such matters, but if you use common sense, you can quickly see how to fix these issues. The problem with most of these people is that they're walking around with too much blood sugar from consuming carbohydrates. The best action plan is to force your body to burn off the extra sugar by becoming active, and I mean something as simple as walking or taking an extended walk throughout the day. And also change your diet by regulating the carbohydrates you consume daily. You have an excessive amount there and the body needs help burning it. The body can convert the rest of the blood sugar into glucose by being active and conservative about the number of carbohydrates ingested. The more active a person is, the more carbohydrates the person will need. If you're sedentary, you won't need excess energy because you won't use it and it will store as fat. There's one more point to make that most people don't know of. Muscle glycogen stores water. For every gram of glycogen stored, 3 to 4 grams of water is stored with it. As your body stores more and more glycogen, the body will also store more and more water. So when you get on a bathroom scale after a good day of eating carbohydrates, the body will weigh more. When you cut carbs from your diet and burn up any stored glycogen, the body will release the water stored and you will notice a quick drop in weight. This makes going on a low carb diet favorable to most people because they notice a quick drop in weight in the first few weeks and believe that they're making solid progress. Fad diets like Atkins, carnivore, or ketogenic diet all focus on limiting the number of carbohydrates taken and have villainized carbohydrates for everyone. I try not to knock diets and training routines very often because these things wouldn't survive if they didn't yield results. However, from a health standpoint, there are better ways to do things, and eating a more balanced diet is always more favorable than eating one that's extreme. So what's the problem with eating extremely low carb diets? First and foremost, the lack of nutrients our body needs. We're meant to consume fruits and vegetables for the micronutrients we obtain. And also, how many doctors or nutritionists do you know that are against eating fruits and vegetables? We should consider that as evidence when we think about our overall health. Secondly, the body prefers carbohydrates as energy. The body can use other sources for fuel, but prefers not to. If you're an athlete, for example, you're making things more difficult on yourself by neglecting carbohydrates, and you can even put your organs under unneeded stresses by doing so. I've heard many experts tell people on a ketogenic diet not to perform high intensity exercise because there's a lack of glucose and the body needs that to perform. You wouldn't use regular gas on a rocket, you would use rocket fuel. The rocket cannot do what it's supposed to without it. Third, most of these diets become dogmatic to the point that they completely defy science. Such diets as Atkins and keto are known for telling people that they can have an excessive number of calories, and it won't matter because carbs are the enemy, and as long as you avoid carbs, you'll be fine. When Atkins first came out, people were eating tons of cheeseburgers without the bun, thinking that this would be acceptable for the long term. Again, tell your doctor you plan on going on a long-term diet where you plan on binging on fast food cheeseburgers and see what they think about it. So, when are low-carb diets beneficial? There's a few situations where having a diet low in carbohydrates can be beneficial. The first I would recommend is when someone is considered a person with type 2 diabetes. For clarification, when I coach a client with type 2 diabetes, a few things must happen. One of those requirements is that they must become active. I don't want them to use diet alone to accomplish their goals. Everyone needs to be active. We weren't meant to lay around all day, so they have to get their steps in. And I recommend getting anywhere from 700 or 7,500 to 10,000 a day. I typically use a modified ketogenic diet where they still consume some carbohydrates, but it's not the majority of what they consume. Another excellent example of when to use low carbohydrate diets is when you know that you'll be inactive. Maybe you're going to be stuck at a desk for an extended period, or you're injured. Again, taking in all this extra energy is pointless if you don't plan on using it. And lastly, if you're in need to lose weight fast and need to drop some water weight, this is the typical strategy for fighters or wrestlers before a match, or if you're about to compete in a bodybuilding show and must dry out before you hit the stage. Other than that, I promote an active lifestyle, and carbohydrates will always be needed. There are two methods to lose weight: starve or work. Many people choose starving, and I don't like it. You become malnourished, and the lack of activity isn't good for you. We need to keep moving to remain healthy. I believe in the work for it method. Eat all the micro and macronutrients your body needs, and then by being active, burn off the excess, and you'll be healthier and look better than the person who doesn't. Before I end this video, I want to discuss body composition and what that means for you. There are many studies out there that support the concept of calories in versus calories out. Believe it or not, this applies to everything. If you take two people with the same metabolic parameters and give one person a diet that contains good quality food and give the other person a diet full of junk food, believe it or not, as long as both people remain in a caloric deficit, they will both lose fat at the conclusion of their diets. The two main differences will be their overall health and their body composition. In other words, if I give test subject A nothing but Oreos and test subject B grilled chicken, broccoli, and rice, at the end of the diet, both will lose ample body fat and body weight. However, test subject B will look better and will have a more favorable body composition. This is why you should be cognizant of what your diet consists of and also how your diet is going to affect your overall health. This can be a blessing because this allows us to stray from our diet sometimes and enjoy some junk food without completely sabotaging all of our gains. I'm not telling you to go crazy, and I'm not even telling you to cheat on your diet, but I am telling you that if you do here and there, you'll probably be fine. Often people will discuss health and fitness with me, and I've had 2 conversations this week where someone told me they had a cheat meal and felt so terrible because they gained 4 pounds the next day. You must understand that 1 pound of body fat equals approximately 3,500 calories. If you add up all your calories in a cheat meal, you must have consumed 14,000 calories to gain 4 pounds of fat. Most people aren't eating that much for a cheat meal, and if they do, they deserve every bit of fat they gain. However, I'll leave you with some bro science that I consider to be more than anecdotal evidence because I've witnessed it work for myself and others consistently. Anything you gain overnight, you can lose overnight. You gain 4 pounds today, you can lose 4 pounds tomorrow. This is why I believe in slower, steady progress. If you decide to do an extreme diet where you drop calories too much, too fast, you will lose weight initially, but the weight you lose can be gained back quickly. But if you're grinding it out and losing 1 pound or 2 of fat per week, you've earned that weight loss and it'll be harder to gain back. Now, I'm not claiming that you can't try hard enough and gain it back, but I am saying that if you earned it, your body will typically keep it off. In closing, carbs are not your enemy. We need to stop falling for these scams. Only misguided people believe that carbs are the enemy. We were meant to eat them, our body needs them, and we should eat them. As I said before, you need to know how much to eat and preferably what kinds of carbs to eat. But this is why you need to hire a coach who knows what they're doing. And speaking of that, I'm taking on new clients for online coaching. Go to my website, fill out a contact card at www.ironsidearmy.com. I have a lot of experience with this and I can improve your life. If you choose not to hire a coach, I encourage you to put in the work, researching everything you need to, and I wish you the absolute best. I want to see everyone succeed. Having content like this will get you on your way. In video 3, we'll discuss proteins. I look forward to it. Until next time, y'all take care.